So I'm not sure if everyone has the draft that's in Google Docs up, but I will put it in the link in the chat just in case. And I figured we could just go in order of what's listed. But before we get started, I thought it might be a good idea just to establish like any changes that we make. If it's not like a unanimous agreement, we could just go majority rules on amongst ourselves. Does that sound all right with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. So the first comment that we have here is that this should be a constitution instead. It was initially titled bylaws, and just making this more of a general constitution. And then when we have an executive board, they can make more concrete and defined bylaws with whatever rules we set out for how to do that. How does everybody feel about that first change?
Vic, do you want to share your screen so we're all looking at the same page at the same time?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. How does this look?
There we go.
Cool. But yeah, just officially deciding that this is more of a general constitution and for bylaws to come later. How does everybody feel about that?
I think that's a good idea. I think some of the things that are listed here could also very easily be copy and pasted into bylaws and then just made, you know, a little bit more rigorous. Let me pull up, I based some of my comments, I will freely admit, when I was at my previous job, I was the chair of our staff association. And one of the things that we did was update our bylaws. And I based a lot of our, a lot of my comments on these bylaws. Let me see if I can get them pulled up here. And there's just a view only link, but I'll drop it in the chat here. We worked very hard on these and there's a lot of detail in here. This could be something that we could just flat out borrow from. But these bylaws are pretty detailed, and they get down into the nitty gritty for some of it.
Okay. I think I can add this maybe to like the drive for C, so then people have access to it maybe, but I think at least the executive board would eventually. But I definitely like making this more general and then making more detailed bylaws later on. So check. So we had said from the very beginning that not having dues and being free or as low cost as possible was really important to us. And just the question is, should that be included in the mission, specifically outlined in the mission?
Maybe. I mean, I really like the idea that putting it in the Constitution would make it difficult to have fees in the future and will require discussion and approval from the board and membership. But that could also make it difficult if C grows into something where dues are necessary. But I mean, we're creating a process, I think, to amend the Constitution further down, right? So I think let's say is open and free to anyone interested, and then make people change it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, is it also possible to perhaps craft it in such a way, I don't want to say by using tentative language for lack of a better expression, but we can have some kind of language there to suggest that at some point in the future we may pursue a membership fee or something to that effect. because we don't want to be silent on it in the Constitution, because it might, as Jay says, it might convey the wrong impression. And at the same time, we don't want to be definitive about it, because we don't want to, have people not join the organization. So we might want to use some kind of language as I don't want to say compromise or tentative, but I think you get what I'm trying to drive at.
Yes.
Yeah. And Carity pointed out in chat as well, maybe establish us as, I'm assuming NPO is nonprofit organization, so that there's an argument for a low cost to members. But here's my question. I'm going to look at Jay because he does all of our treasury stuff for SFA, and he knows more about this than I do. Is there paperwork that we have to file to like officially do? Yeah. Do we really want to go that route?
So I mean,
Question mark.
you file 501c3. SFA has been a 501c3 since the 80s, if not longer. So all I do is just copy and paste the existing information into a new form for renewal every 5 years. So I don't know the actual process of getting nonprofit status.
It may very well be worth it to us to actually do the nonprofit, particularly if we do decide to do any kind of fundraising later, because that will make us tax deductible. So if people are making a donation to us to support initiatives or just to support any kind of, like if we came up with a scholarship fund for something, right? And someone wanted to donate to that scholarship fund, they might only be donating, everyone may only be giving $5 or something, but it would be 5 tax deductible dollars. So I think, my other thought is that it's a lot easier to amend bylaws than it is to amend a constitution. So so what I would say is, if we write it that we, is it Bebe? Is that right? Am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's BB.
BB. As BB said, to put in some sort of tentative language or vague or something that gives us options. We are incorporating with as a non-dues organization, but we may in the future, the board could make a decision that we could, formally pursue becoming a nonprofit, or something like that.
I'm writing something in chat. Hang on. I'm trying to summarize what everybody's been saying here. The option to become.
I'm also taking notes, so don't fret too much about getting everything.
I'm trying to write some language here. That may collect dues in the future. So I said, while we are currently a non-dues collecting organization, the board may pursue the option to become a nonprofit organization that may collect dues in the future. And that is off the top of my head, trying to summarize what folks have been saying. I'm not saying that has to be the official language, but yeah, there's something.
I mean, I think that would work. We could also say like any decision to become a dues collecting organization would be voted on by the membership. So members would feel like if it comes to it, there will not be something that the board decides without their input.
For sure.
I think I got what you said, Jennifer.
Yes, that's right.
Does this look right? To add here.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Not to, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, what were you saying?
My other thing, because I'm nitpicky, I'm a terrible person to have on stuff like this because I sit here and I pick at everything. Do we want to redefine Southeastern United States? We have it up in our mission statement. do we want to just redefine it like one more time just for the membership part? And then we probably don't have to mention it again. Thoughts?
Actually,
I'm ambivalent.
we're open to people who don't live in the Southeast, whether they, or well, I guess, yeah, anyone interested in or affiliated with. Okay, so I guess the people who are not actually living here is covered by interested in. Yeah, I guess we could specify again which states we mean. North Carolina, yeah.
Yeah, maybe just say including.
Right.
Because then, if I know people define the Southeast slightly differently depending upon, where they're from.
I mean, the South doesn't know how to define the South. We can't.
Right.
Could we do something similar to what we do in the name of the organization and say Archival Community of North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and Mississippi, hereafter referred to as the Southeast region or as the Southeast?
Yeah, and put that here under membership or under mission when we first mention it.
I mean, we could do a mission when we first mention it. That way we're sort of laying out terms from the beginning.
Sorry, that was like a lot of.
Referred to as, and then that colon should be a period at the end. Cool. Sorry, I have copy editing background. I'm sorry.
No,
you're good.
If there's one thing I've learned, it's that I am probably the worst person to do live typing. But this is good. We're working together. So check. Yeah, so Brian had a question about membership, including vendors, which I had never considered, but I thought was a really good point. How do y'all feel about that? What do you think?
Sorry, before we go on to that point, the language is still not consistent. So if we say in the mission, hereafter referred to as the Greater Southeast region, then shouldn't we be consistent under the membership by, okay, I see.
You're exactly
great. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Good catch. Yes, you've been nominated for the Bylaws Committee, Sarah.
Crapola.
You have made the mistake of announcing you are focused and detail oriented. And we're going to put you in charge of things that require focus and detail oriented. Vendors. Okay. Vendors are members of Ex Libris, which occasionally makes things contentious.
Can we say that they're allowed in, but they don't get to vote? Does that mean?
No.
I think that's reasonable. I can see how. I mean, the thing is, if we allow vendors in, then we have to make rules about when they can advertise and how they can advertise and what counts as advertising. And Ex Libris has done their best to confine the book catalogs to Tuesdays. So we do get a flood of book catalog email every Tuesday, and some of the vendors sort of grab any email they can and continue to send us things on days that are not Tuesday. So that can be very annoying. I can see on the other hand how vendors might be like, this is our, the giant assortment of our customer base, and this is how we find out about events we may want to sponsor or attend as vendors. If we,
I don't want to be the vendor police.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I really don't want to be the vendor police. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of, if they want to read, I guess that's fine, but I don't want people to feel like if they join us, then they're going to be on every vendor's spam email list.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Jennifer, because I get random emails all the time. Jay, I can't remember. Do we have do we have vendors who are members of SFA?
We have institutional memberships. I think we have vendors who might have their own membership. I know we get occasional emails on the SFA listserv, but it's not very often. But to the point of vendors as members, that may be something just to hash out in bylaws and leave it sort of open-ended in the Constitution. I mean, I'm not opposed, and I think vendors, as there may need to be rules set if there are a lot of advertisements going out on the listserv, but I think vendors as members is fine because there is often a lot of crossover with people who had been in archival institutions and gone into a vendor or commercial role.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could address the whole vendor email issue in the context of the listserv.
That's true.
And then, you know, we can hash it out once for the purpose of the listserv, and we can be like, look, if you fool around with this, like, we would make it something, be like, don't try us, we will kick you.
You will get the boot, and we need like a boot gif. Gone.
Ex Libris has gone through a kind of convulsive period with having mods and everything else, and some people have taken it better than others. But I think since we are starting from scratch here, we don't have any legacy vendor members to appease, so we can decide what we want to do. And I think on the one hand, I don't want to tell them no, but on the other hand, I don't want to be the vendor police. So and they all have plenty of other outlets to send us information about their products. So we may, I think, ultimately want to punt that to the bylaws. But I guess I would say that we don't need to comment explicitly on vendor memberships in the Constitution.
How does everybody, do we all agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
What else did we say was in bylaws? Is that the only thing we put over there so far? Okay.
It was dues and nonprofit, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing with being a nonprofit is we have to pick a state to incorporate in, and we've got 7 to choose from.
That, yeah, that'll be hard. Or maybe easy. I guess whoever has the best rules.
I mean, I'm just thinking to myself, like, where did Marac incorporate? Like, did they just incorporate it in district, or?
They probably incorporated in Delaware like everyone else in the Northeast.
Yeah. I'm like, wait, is Delaware part of Marac? Because I'm like, was this incorporated in Delaware? I'm like, Delaware is not even no, that doesn't work.
I still just loved when we had our very first SEAA meeting, and we were asking for comments about, you know, what do you want to see in this organization, and somebody wrote "Fight Merrick" on it. I was sitting here going, we need like a banner and, like, you know, a motto and a battle cry.
Challenge Marek to a cage match.
Who's good at dueling and jousting?
So the next section is on executive board officers. And so the first question is we need to make 2 sections about elected versus appointed officials. But I would also ask, should we even have elected and appointed, or if everything should be one or the other? Well, not appointed, but should be elected for everything.
So I'm trying to remember, didn't we say that the state representatives would be elected by their respective states' organizations, and then be basically their appointment would then be to be like on this organization's board? Am I remembering that right?
Yes.
So to me, I think I always get a little leery when people get appointed to things, mostly because I don't really like telling people you must do this. That's not my personality. I don't like being the one being told you are being appointed to this without being consulted. That's happened to me several times in my career, and I did not enjoy it. And it's hard when you feel like you're put in a position where you feel like you can't say no. So to me, you know, part of
Maybe
me wants to
invited
say
instead
all
of
of
appointed.
Say that again, please.
I said maybe invited instead of appointed.
invited, or just elect everything. You know, your state reps can be elected by your state organizations. You'd have to like work through your state organization, but you would be elected to the role. So you would have like chosen to put yourself up for election, kind of a thing. If you're on the board, then maybe you might get appointed to do, you know, like a task or something, but you wouldn't be appointed to a position because you're already on the board. You can't hold more than one position. Am I making any sense at all? Like, it's been a very long day and I've got Zoom loopiness.
No, that makes sense.
That makes sense to me, actually. Yes.
Okay, so we'll say no appointed positions. I can't really find it. Okay, so I will say I left the officers will be versus will be part structure because different people had different opinions and I don't know what to do or have a particular preference. And it's making it hard for me to read. So does anybody feel strongly?
I like saying the officers. The officers will be, and then those holding.
Okay.
Yes.
It kind of goes back to the mixture of statements thing. And I don't know if did we already talk about that, or is that later? Because I just looked at the comments today.
It's later, but yes, this
Okay.
does touch into that.
Just like the consistency. So if we say we're just going to make everything a statement,
Okay.
then it would be the officers will.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so this one. Oops. Okay, I'm going too fast, but thank you. The different colors were like throwing me off. So we're gonna say no appointments. I feel like maybe that should that be explicitly stated or just never actually say someone's appointed?
That might be something for the bylaws,
Okay.
because that's getting kind of nitty gritty. To me, please feel free to disagree.
No, I'm good with that. Oh, we need term limits. How do people feel with you can't serve more than 2 consecutive terms?
Yes.
Consecutive terms in the same position?
Yeah, so basically you can't be secretary more than 2 years in a row.
Oh, should we say that officers can only hold 1 position at a time? Phoebe, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think it'd be very difficult for you to be the state rep and like past president, or state rep and secretary. To me, you should only hold 1 office in C. Like, you can be treasurer of, the Mississippi State Archives Association. I'm sorry that I don't know what your guys's state org is called. But you can't hold more than 1 position at a time in C.
Are there certain roles, though, that might be less demanding, where at the discretion of the board, someone may be allowed to hold 2 positions? This is just a question before we finalize this.
I think as far as like committees and subcommittees go, I think you could hold more than 1 position and for that, but maybe not on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Yeah. And you should not be able to be a committee chair if you're on the executive board, which I think is a pretty standard rule across most organizations. If you're on the executive board, you can be on a committee, you just can't be the chair of a committee and also be, president, vice president, whatever.
Wait, a committee chair?
Committee or section, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So, am I skipping too much?
Before we move on from that one, it is standard in a lot of organizations for the past president to chair nominating.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I mean, that's how RBMS works. I think that's how SFA works. And I think the vice president of SFA is also the chair of the annual meeting committee.
Mm-hmm. Co-chair.
Co-chair.
Mary told me that you're co-chair with somebody else. I can't remember what other position it is, but you're co-chair with somebody. I should know this. She just emailed me about this because she's twisting my arm to run for vice chair for SFA.
Oh, you should totally run for vice chair for SFA.
She emailed me and she's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll throw my name in the hat." And she goes, "Just so you know, you also are co-chair of the annual meeting committee with her, but I don't know what position she would then be holding.
Should be like local arrangements because it'll be
Local
in
arrangements.
Orlando.
Okay.
Should
Sorry
we
for-
move
Sure.
executive?
Sorry for talking about our SFA internal workings during this meeting. Sorry.
Should we move this discussion to the bylaws document?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So this was I think I kind of fixed that. And it kind of touches on this next part. We had at one point said to limit officer positions held by people in order to sort of spread out the number of leadership positions within the region. Do we want to stick with that or retract that?
Can you scroll down just a little bit more, Vic, so we can see?
Yes.
Okay.
I think Vic and Jennifer, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but some of my thinking with the not holding other positions in archival organizations and reps not being, or president and vice president not being from the same state are both ways to sort of keep the representation spread geographically. So in addition to making it accessible to more people, also trying to avoid people who are really active in particular areas. Like this meeting right now is, 3 people from Florida and 2 people from Mississippi. Actually, sorry, 4 people from Florida.
4 people from Florida, yeah.
Sorry, I can't count.
Whoop, whoop.
Yes. Well, I will say, well, that was what we originally said, and I still agree with that. It could potentially have us run into a problem, especially at the beginning of C, in that it could be, like in this meeting, that people who hold positions in their state organizations are the same people that are doing work in this organization.
Yeah. Could we say, maybe instead of may not, could we say something, it is preferred that?
Discouraged, yeah. I mean, the part of it was what I learned being part of RAC was that if the RAC rep for an organization was also the president of the organization, they really did not have time to do what we needed them to do for RAC. So I think if we want to say they can't hold office, maybe we want to specify that they cannot be the president or vice president of another organization.
Yeah, I think that's a fair compromise, because I'm like, I could see being maybe a secretary or treasurer of a larger organization and still being able to be a president or VP here. But if you're president of a state organization and you're also trying to be president of this, you either don't sleep or are running on caffeine like a hamster on a wheel. I'm like,
yeah. I mean, that is specifically why we did that, is that we really pushed with RAC to be like, look, if you're going to be the RAC rep, you cannot also be trying to run your state organization. So maybe maybe that will reduce.
What is this?
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that so you can see it. I did skip something earlier.
Yeah, we skipped the quorum and the crap. Can you scroll down? Because I made 2 and the vacancies. And those both might be things that need to go in the bylaws as opposed to in the Constitution? Question mark. I don't know if they need to be stated here or not.
I just realized that I don't have this one. Sorry. I spelled it wrong. I'm really sorry. I hate typing while people can see my misspellings.
I managed to get through my entire collegiate and like high school and elementary school career without taking a keyboarding class. So I am in my 30s and I cannot touch type, like, at all.
I had typing in middle school. We started on actual typewriters and then graduated to word processors before computers.
Wow.
My
Yeah.
parents forced me to take a typing class in high school, and I hated every minute of it, and I did not learn to touch type. Do you know where I learned to touch type? IRC.
Yeah, I managed, like, they called it keyboarding when I was in school. And so I managed, like, they always made it a requirement, basically like the year that I left that grade. So like the year I left 6th grade, they made the next year's like 5th graders coming into 6th grade take it. And the same thing was like 7th, 8th grade. And I changed school districts when I started high school. So like I could type, but I still can't touch type. Like I still have to like look down, and I make so many mistakes. It's not even funny. But I remember sitting in my very first high school class was computing, like learning how to use Microsoft Office and all that. And the first thing she did was have us take like a touch typing test. And I remember sitting there crying in my high school classroom because she came over to me and she's like, how can you not do this? This is the easiest thing. You should have been doing this since you were like, 10 years old. I'm like, I never learned how to do this.
Yeah, my typing class I used to keep a journal, so I confided all of my 7th grade angst and agita to my typing class journal. And then at some point, I think I deleted it by accident, so I was very upset about that. But yeah, I was still, and I went through the entire process of keeping my angst journal, looking at my fingers while I was typing. Yeah, I was well into my 20s and using IRC before I learned to touch type. And then I didn't even realize I'd done it till my father was watching me tease. He's like, "Oh, you finally learned to touch type," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I did." I was just like, "Not from the typing class you made me take, though."
Sorry, I keep pulling us off topic. I'm sorry.
No, I enjoy these. I am just worried about the time, and we have a lot to go through. But I feel rude, so I'm really sorry about that. Anyway, letter E, is again sort of the same idea of should we spread out or consolidate. The more I think about this specific one, I'm thinking we should get rid of this in the current, like this first version of the Constitution. But I really do believe that this is something that we should add back in if it's feasible.
I think we keep it. I think we've seen enough interest in the meetings that we won't have a whole lot of trouble getting people from different states to run for office. And I feel like keeping it now is easier than trying to put it back in later.
I agree. I think this is an important part of what we're trying to do. And I think if we take it out, then it will make it, Jay's right, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to try to stick it in, in a year or two. And we can also then point to it and say, hey, look, part of the goals of this organization is to have representation from all of these states. And so, we want to make sure of that. So, hey, run for office if you're from, Mississippi or Alabama or Tennessee or Georgia or wherever. It makes a good marketing tool.
Okay, I'll leave it. Sorry. And then what's this? The same thing. Nothing else on comments. All positions will be held for a year. Is that too short? But also we need to know what a year is. Is a year long enough? Is everybody okay with that? I think we were kind of thinking that that's a long time for the president, vice president, past president, if it was 2 years.
Yeah, because that'd be what, 6 by the time you got done with all 3. That's a long commitment.
Yeah.
I think it makes it easier to do it on an academic year because I think that's what not all of us are on, but that might be the easiest. Positions start, July 1st and end June 30th.
I mean, that's when most of our professional orgs, where people will roll on and off.
Mm.
So, people will be able to be like, okay, I'm past president. I'm president here until July, and then once I roll off there, I could roll on somewhere else.
Okay. Should that go under what a year is, or does that need like its own defining point?
No, I think 1 year. The year will be from July 1 to June 30th of the next year or whatever.
Yeah, and like for those of us that are on fiscal year, that is at least still like right on a quarter. So that's still awesome.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking most places still did the July to June
Mm-hmm.
fiscal, even if they aren't like on an academic calendar.
Okay. We'll need to define who members are, who's responsible for managing membership. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out how to manage membership if we're going to be using members of the reason for quorum.
Is this language a little better? Each position will follow the academic year, July 1 to June 30th.
Although that's not everyone's academic year. UM is May to June, or June to May, I should say.
Oh, that's right.
Is this too? Is
I think
that
that's-
to make this sound more like easier?
I think that's good as it is. I mean, if we throw in fiscal year again, a fiscal year can be however you define it. Every organization can have their own. I mean, most people do July to June. So
Yeah.
I think we just leave it with these dates.
I think it's fine. I think all positions will be held from July 1st to June 30th of the following year, whether that's academic year, fiscal year, a random series of dates on the calendar. At least we have specified which random series of dates on the calendar we are sticking to.
Okay. This part. What do we define? Since there's no dues, how do we define who's a member and who just is part of the listserv?
Mailing list subscribers. If they're a member of the mailing list, they are a member.
Unless they're a vendor.
Unless
they can't vote.
Well, two-thirds. Okay. General members of mailing list subscribers, excluding vendors. Or no, that doesn't, as we punted the vendor discussion to bylaws.
We could, and this is involving a lot of punting, making in the Constitution state that for someone to be removed from the executive board, skip straight past general members and make it by some portion of the remaining executive board, and then add defining general members to bylaws.
Okay.
This is putting a lot of stuff off.
And there's nothing saying that we can't move some of the stuff back into the Constitution either.
No, we just have to follow whatever the rules for amending the Constitution are.
Right. But until we have an actual final official, like, this is one we're going to send out to get voted on, we can still make changes until we send it out.
Can we add a note in the Constitution to say sort of as defined by the bylaws? So if we leave members in and just use a little asterisk or a footnote, and that could be applicable in several places in this document.
Here? Wait, where, Jay?
Yeah, actually, no, that would be, yeah, right there would be great.
Yeah.
Is this what you meant? I feel like I misunderstood. Okay. So we've finished the first part of officers. We have said that we want to be an organization that finishes meetings on time. It is 3:55. We can continue on if y'all have nothing else to do today.
Well, I haven't. Wait, am I muted or not? Okay, no, I have another meeting at 4. I know I know Sarah is on like hour 3 of Zoom meetings today. So we may want to reconvene and take on part 2 another time.
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, there's no external deadline to finish this. So we're not in any raging hurry here.
Yeah.
So
How do you all feel about meeting next Wednesday?
Let me look at my calendar here real quick.
Y'all attractive.
Looks good for me.
Hang on.
Is it at the same time at this time?
We
Yeah.
could move it, but if it works at the same time, we could keep it at the same time.
I can do Wednesday at 2 or 3.
I was gonna say Wednesday at 2 or 3 would be fine for me too. But Eastern time, so.
So Wednesday at 3 or 4 Eastern is 2 or 3 Central.
Right.
Does that work for everybody?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Yep.
And
and Wednesday at 3 Eastern, is that what you?
I think we said.
What time have you decided? What Wednesday at 3 Eastern? I'm confused.
Is 3 Eastern best for everyone? My Wednesday afternoon blocks are pretty free, except for a meeting I don't really like anyway. So
I have a meeting at 4 on that particular Wednesday that I'd rather not miss.
Right. 2 Eastern then? How about 2 Eastern?
Well, I can do 3 Eastern or 2 Eastern or 1 Eastern, but that would make 1 Eastern would be noon for y'all in Central Time, and I don't want to make y'all give up your lunch.
how does 3 Eastern sound?
That's
Okay,
good
that's
for
fine.
me.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, I'm gonna block it off right now on my calendar in anticipation of getting a meeting invite.
Yes. I will send it as soon as we're done. 3 Eastern, 2 Central.
I have the right time on my calendar now. Like I said, I feel so bad, Vic. I did not mean to like give you a panic attack.
So it's okay. Okay, I will send this out. And thank you all for coming and thank you all for your help. I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that people are excited about SEAA.
Yeah, I will say writing stuff like this is just like, it's like pulling teeth. So it's not easy. And thank you, Vic, for doing all this work and helping put this together and corral and herd us cats who are like, oh, let's talk about shiny things and get off topic.
Thank you. Although I will say I mostly just made a Google Doc and was like,
Hey, but that's doing something.
I look forward to seeing you guys all next week. I hope you have a fantastic week and happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks, you
Thank
too.
Thanks. Bye, buddy.
Have a good
Bye,
one.
y'all.
Bye.
Bye.